Hello everybody, thank you very much for coming along today, and thank you to Rachel for the introduction there. So we are some members of the BTO's Youth Advisory Panel, and so we're going to be talking to you today about some of the projects that we've been working on for the last year and a half now. So here are the presenters for today. So I'm Maura, and along with Ellie and Sam, we've been part of the Youth Advisory Panel since it started in January of 2020. And Emily and Katie also joined us in January of 2021. So today then we'll be discussing how the Youth Advisory Panel was formed and some of the projects we worked on, which include a strategy, a youth rep scheme, and an equipment donation scheme. We'll then discuss some of the skills that we've been able to develop and some of the challenges that we've faced, and also our advice for starting a youth panel, as well as our future plans and how to get in contact with us. So it was our first and only in-person meeting. And as you can see, I was still unfortunately virtual for that one. So we are a group of 9 young people who are passionate about nature and the environment. We aged between 16 and 24 and have lots of different interests and skill sets. Some of us are still at school, some are at university, some are in graduate studies, and some are working already. So in terms of then of a brief timeline of BTO's youth engagement, in October of 2019, BTO staff started to work on the idea of having a youth advisory panel. Applications then went out, and so after a written application and an interview process, we were recruited in January of 2020. After that, we worked on different projects, which we'll be talking about today. And by September of 2020, our youth engagement strategy was approved by BTO's board. In January of 2021, the youth reps, which we'll talk about in a moment, were recruited and started. And then in February 2021, we launched our equipment donation scheme. So then I'll talk briefly about how we created our strategy, as this was one of the first projects that we worked on. So the reason that we created a strategy was so that we could really set out what we wanted to achieve and how we were going to do it, and also to give ourselves a time frame for each of the milestones that we wanted to hit. So in order to start the strategy, we first needed to do some research. So we did a literature review, looking at the literature to find out what works in terms of youth engagement. We did some market research, looking at what other organisations are doing to engage young people, and also horizon scanning, so to see what the future of youth engagement might look like. We then created and sent out a youth survey where we asked young people directly what they thought the barriers were to getting involved with nature and what they would like to see us do. In July 2020, we presented our ideas to the Board of Trustees. So these ideas were, we first off had lots of spreadsheets with all of our ideas written down. And then after lots and lots of meetings of evaluating and shortlisting and deciding on what we really wanted to focus on, we sort of narrowed this down to 3 main priorities. And then by December of 2020, we had our final published strategy, which you can see the front cover of here. So as part of the strategy, we created a vision so that really underpins everything we want to achieve as part of our time here on the Youth Advisory Panel. So we want to create a diverse, vibrant community of young birders supported by the BTO with accessible youth-led opportunities, inspiring young people to engage with nature and science. So then these were the main ideas that we wanted to develop. So an ambassador scheme, support for schools and universities, training for young people, led by young people, and online content creation that would culminate in these regional groups that would create this local community feel that we felt was missing at the moment. So I'll now pass on to Sam, who will talk about our youth representative scheme.
So yes, hello everybody. I have the great privilege of talking about the youth representative scheme, which we are currently in the trial phase of. So first of all, what is a youth representative? So a youth rep is someone aged between the age of 16 and 24 whose role is to help foster youth engagement in their region. So this could be from running events, giving talks at schools and trying to better connect the local community. A youth rep is also someone that people can turn to for advice and help. And back in May 2020, a survey of young people told us that they found the nature community was sort of lacking in the correct support for young people. And in fact, when I think about it from my point of view as well, I've seen evidence of this myself, where if the correct support isn't given given, then a lot of the young budding conservationists and wildlife enthusiasts of the future lose interest. I've had really good friends of mine drop out because there was no support for them and they had no one to turn to when they needed it the most. So I have to admit that I myself and many of the others on the youth advisory panel have been really lucky to have the support that we needed. And so a lot of us have felt that we needed to help replicate this and sort of helping others since. And it would be great if we could broaden that network of young people and the network of support for young people as well. So we are currently in a trial/pilot phase of the scheme with 16 youth reps appointed across the UK, and with the hope of adding new people and new regions every year. So what have the youth reps done so far? Unfortunately, with the pandemic, we are possibly not seeing the full scale of what the youth rep scheme could do. However, they are currently running preparing to run a number of events, such as an art initiative, which they hope to get off the ground in 2022. The Nature Natter series, which is where under 25s can come and ask their questions in a Q&A style interview and presentation to well-known influencers. And this has included the likes of Lucy Lapwing, Indy Green, Hamza Yassin, and next week's Nature Natter is with Green-Fingered George, which I'll be hosting. This has been a great experience for us and also the presenters, as we've seen the talks become a supportive environment for young people to voice their questions that otherwise they might have been too shy or embarrassed to ask in front of adults. So the youth reps are also currently working on some short videos to help get people involved with bird watching, including helpful pointers to get people heading in the right direction and to try and address some of the issues and barriers that occur to young people when trying to get involved with bird watching, such as a lack of transportation to well-known sites, the cost of equipment and time constraints, just to name a few. The youth reps are also finalising a training programme for young people, which they aim to run through a series of 13 bi-weekly Zoom sessions covering a range of topics/bird groups. This will be run between October of this year and May 2022. And so finally, what do the youth reps get in return? Unfortunately, we don't quite have the funding or resources to pay youth reps, but what we do instead is we offer quite an extensive range of training programs, some of which are mandatory, such as safeguarding and how to run effective events, and others are added bonuses, such as the leadership session that Juliet Vickery, the CEO of the BTO, will be leading in a few weeks' time. All in all, I'm thoroughly looking forward to how this continues to unfold and spread its wings in the coming months and years. So now I'll be handing over to Katie to talk about the EDS.
So the first project I worked on since joining the Youth Advisory Panel this year was the Equipment Donation Scheme. The BTO Equipment Donation Scheme is designed to support young people between the age of 11 to 21 by sending out-of-use binoculars or other birding equipment like scopes to a school, university group, or an individual who cannot afford to buy their own pair. By providing equipment, this allows them to further their passion for birdwatching and make the most of their experiences outdoors. The BTO Youth Advisory Panel initially started to think about this scheme in August of last year, working on it up until this January, where the scheme was finalised. In February, it was launched, with social media content being created to promote it. The promotion of this scheme allowed the first donations and applications to be received. Members of the Youth Advisory Panel reviewed and scored these applications, deciding who to send the equipment donated by people across the nation to. with recipients providing feedback about how the equipment has enabled them to develop their skills and interests further, which is passed on to the donors, allowing them to see how their equipment is being used and how it's helped a young person. Each month, as new applications and donations came in, we continued deciding who to donate equipment to based on a written question about why they would like to be considered and how they will use this equipment if they receive it, as well as what equipment they already have. Opticron kindly sponsored this scheme, allowing greater accessibility to different types of binoculars, ensuring we would be able to provide equipment to a wider range of young people. Using the network of youth representatives and BTO social media platforms, the Equipment Donation Scheme Committee, made up of members of the Youth Advisory Panel, have reviewed over 100 applications, whilst receiving over 500 pieces of equipment. We are hoping this scheme will continue to be as popular as it has been, allowing the younger generations in schools to connect to nature and individuals to pursue their passion of birdwatching. We have received some amazing pieces of feedback from both applicants and donors, such as this one by Ravi, who has been using his pair every day since receiving them and has seen such a massive variety of birds already. Steve, the person who donated this pair of binoculars, was thrilled to hear this and delighted to hear how he helped young people like Ravi really connect to nature and light that spark of his passion. I will now pass on to Ellie to talk about skills and development throughout BTO YAP.
So YAP is really great as it's definitely a two-way relationship, as the BTO help us develop our skills and also improve our CV while working on it. So this can be through different workshops, which range in topics from social media management to giving presentations to networking with other organisations such as the RSPB. The BTO is also committed to giving us more leadership roles. So for example, we helped interview for the youth reps, and also myself, I got the opportunity to help interview for the new CEO of the BTO. And this was a real privilege and an amazing opportunity, which I gained a lot from. But what was also great is that this showed to me that the youth agenda and the voices of YAP were really valued within the BTO as an organisation. And so we finish each quarter with an evaluation and a reflection. So this ensures that our targets are met and also empowers us to make sure that what we want to achieve from our work in YAP and what we want to do in BTO is getting met. So as we've discussed, YAP has only been running for just over a year now. So undoubtedly we would have experienced some challenges along the way. So although we did have a first in-person meeting, all subsequent meetings have been online, and I'm sure many people are aware all the different challenges that come with that. So it's perhaps harder to read body language, and some tasks can take quite a bit longer because it's harder to collaborate and interact online. But on the flip side of that is that we've been able to meet a much wider range of BTO staff. And also as a YAP, we've arguably been able to meet up more regularly as we are spread out across the countries and across the United Kingdom, and we were recruited so. And then I also found that strategies do take a lot of time, as it is a very substantial document, and there was a lot of time and effort, as Mara described, that went into this. So with the literature review and the questionnaire that went into it. So this took a good 6 months of our time, and it is definitely the more difficult and technical and wordy part when we were perhaps itching to get on with launching the youth rep scheme and doing practical work and seeing tangible impacts on what we were doing. But the strategy was a really necessary part to articulate our aims, to make sure that YAP and its goals could be sustained in the future later on, as while we're on YAP, we're not in a permanent role. And then finally, it was really interesting to learn how the organisation works, so how BTO dynamics worked and how it operated as a non-campaigning organisation. And this really helped us develop our schemes that we did. So we made use of the volunteers and the wide membership for our equipment donation scheme. And we also worked alongside the regional network already in place at the BTO to help with our youth rep scheme. So we talked to them, asked them how they saw the youth reps working, whether they thought they'd be effective, whether they thought they'd be useful. And this ultimately made these schemes a lot more effective. So although we have experienced some challenges along the way, as a YAP, we've only definitely learned from them, and it's only improved us as a group.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the pieces of advice we would give you if you were looking to start your own youth advisory panel, and then going a bit into our future plans for YAP. So we have 4 kind of key bits of advice which we think have really helped us to kind of integrate ourselves into the organisation and create a positive impact as part of the youth advisory panel. So the first and possibly key element is that you create a supportive environment, which we think the BTO have done really well. And we think that's been pretty key to our success as a youth advisory panel. Everybody's ideas are equally appreciated. There's no such thing as stupid ideas. And everybody's kind of individual personalities, whether they're introverted or extroverted, and their talents, whether they're more into the science side or more into the communication side, is taken into account, and that contributes to making us feel like a real part of the organisation, which helps us to drive that positive change as part of the youth panel. And talking of integration, we get the opportunity to be involved across the organisation. While the majority of our work obviously concerns kind of youth activities and the youth advisory panel related things, we do get the opportunity to get involved in the organisation far beyond that, which again contributes to making us feel like a part of it, which is really important for, you know, keeping that motivation and keeping that drive to create positive change. And it's also great for skill building. You know, we get to experience all different kind of roles within the organisation, and that's really great for kind of CV purposes. The third thing which we think BTO does well is the flexibility. So as was previously mentioned, some of us are still in school, some of us are at university, and some of us are working full time. And obviously those things take a really big time commitment, and the work that we do with the BTO is on top of that. But they have always been incredibly flexible with us, you know, enabling us to take us, or even encouraging us to take a step back when we have really busy periods, which then enables us to come back feeling really refreshed and ready to, you know, do our best work. And that really helps us to feel like we're valued as individuals and not just as members of the youth advisory panel, which I think is really key for keeping our motivation high. And then the fourth thing, which some of us think is probably the most important, is remembering that this is meant to be something fun. And that's something that we definitely feel with the BTO Youth Advisory Panel. You know, I work full time, and so every day is a case of death by Zoom meetings. But after work, I actually look forward to doing another 2-hour Zoom call with the BTO because we have such a great time together. It's been really fun getting to know everyone, and, you know, even when we're delivering these highly technical and complicated pieces of work with pretty serious implications, we still manage to do it in a really fun way, and we all have a good time doing it. So what's next for the Youth Advisory Panel? So we are currently in the midst of creating an online youth hub on the BTO website. So that will function as a part of the website, but separate, so that it creates a kind of community feel for young people interested in birding and in nature more generally. So that will collect all of the current youth-related resources that currently exist on the BTO website and put them all in a really easily accessible place. And that will obviously continue to be populated both by the Youth Advisory Panel and by the youth reps. And as Mara mentioned previously, in-person events obviously haven't been a thing, but we are actually planning tentatively to meet later this year, which would be incredible because Katie and I haven't met anyone yet. So that is in the plans, and hopefully, if Boris lets us, we will be able to plan a lot more in-person events as well. We are also currently recruiting a Kickstart intern through the Kickstart scheme. And we're all really excited about that because they will work very closely with the Youth Advisory Panel, so that's really something to look forward to. And then finally, literally in the last 20 minutes, we have launched our new teacher panel. So essentially, we want to create resources and activities for schools so that young people can learn about birds and more widely about nature, no matter what subject they're taking, no matter their background. So we have started a teacher panel to find out more about what teachers want and what will actually be practical for use in the classroom. So we're looking for teachers with an interest in engaging students with nature to help us with that. And it doesn't matter whether you're a trainee teacher, a current teacher, or a retired teacher. Applications will be open until the 25th of July, and I will just paste the link into the chat so you can all access the webpage where you can apply. It's also got a video with a bit more information on it. So if you're interested in hearing more from the BTO, including about our youth work, you can follow us on Twitter @_BTO, on Facebook with the British Trust for Ornithology, and on Instagram we're @BTO Birds. And if you're interested in finding out more specifically about our youth work as the Youth Advisory Panel, the youth reps or anything like that, you can go to our webpage on www.bto.org/YAP or email youth@bto.org. Thank you so much for listening.